If you're currently in a job that is making you miserable and you've been in that job for years while knowing that you're unhappy in your current career path, then today's episode is for you because I'm sharing 3 things that you're likely missing out on when you're in an unfulfilling career. Hi, if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm Dr. 𝙁𝙤𝙣𝙔𝙤. I'm a career counselor and coach, and I help women who are unhappy at work get super clear about who they are so they can find a fulfilling career and secure aligned jobs with bigger salary increases. Let's get into today's episode, and if you find this episode helpful, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you get notified whenever future videos get posted. So excited to have you here listening, watching the video, whichever one you're doing. I'm really excited to have you here. And I'm also really excited about today's topic. I think I'm excited about today's topic because over the past, I would say, so I've owned Her Career Doctor, my company, for 5 years now. I started in 2019. So whatever that math is, it's currently 2024. Everybody knows, I tell people math is not, I don't do math in my head. Okay. I need a calculator. But over the past few years, what I've recognized is that a lot of people underestimate the impact that their careers have on their lives. Like one of my business mottos, one of my life mottos is that you cannot experience life satisfaction without career satisfaction. Because let's think about it. In your career, you're spending on average, at minimum, even not on average, at minimum 40 hours a week at your job. And I say minimum because most people are overworking and working more than 40 hours. So most of your waking hours are spent at your job. You cannot be in a job or a work environment that is draining you, that is causing you to doubt yourself, that is causing you to be unhappy, and think that the rest of your life will just magically be fine when you spend most of your waking hours being miserable. Research has shown consistently that that's not what happens. When you're doing unaligned work, you experience higher levels of work stress that impacts everything. Your physical health, your mental health, your relationships, they all suffer when you're in an unfulfilling job. And so in today's episode, I want to just focus in on 3 things. I want to share with you 3 things that you are missing out on when you're in an unfulfilling career. And if I think of who I'm recording this episode for, I think I'm really thinking of that woman who you have known that you are unhappy in your career for at minimum, at least the last 3 years, you've known you're unhappy. If you're anything like most of the women I work with, it's more like you've known you were unhappy for the past 5 years. And you have stayed in that job for a few reasons, whether it's you have no clue what else you could do without starting over in your career. You think that if you do something more fulfilling, you would have to take a pay cut. You believe that work is meant to be miserable, whether you know it intentionally or unintentionally, you have internalized messages that work is just supposed to be work and work is supposed to be miserable. And so desiring fulfillment makes no sense, which, mind you, false. That's not true. And so because of these belief systems, you've stayed in that job that's negatively impacting you. And you have reached the point in your career where a part of you is starting to recognize that you can't do this anymore, right? You're losing weight, you're gaining weight, your hair is falling out, your skin is breaking out, you have increased anxiety, increased depression, you're not motivated anymore, you're not excited anymore. Like you just are seeing that your job is negatively impacting every area of your life. And so you're on that precipice, right? Like you're like, you know what? Something's got to give, but you haven't fully committed to changing your career situation. You know something's got to give, but you haven't fully committed. I think that's who I'm talking to today. And I just thought about that right now. I didn't think about it before I started recording, but I think that's who I'm talking to today because I want you to see or hear, and you can picture as I'm talking, the things that you are missing out on by staying complacent in your career, by staying complacent in that job that's making you miserable. And let me back up actually. Somebody that I'm definitely talking to is the woman who has the privilege of choice in her career. And this is something I often say in my work is that my work is really focused on the women who have privilege of choice in their career because most people don't have the privilege of making a choice in their career. They have to do what they're doing for reasons, whether it's just life circumstances, socioeconomic circumstances, geographic circumstances. For some reason or the other, they don't get to choose what they're doing in their career. And so if you have the privilege of making a choice and you're choosing to stay in a job that is making you unfulfilled, unhappy, and miserable, I think you're doing the world a massive disservice because not everybody has that privilege. And here you are with the privilege and you're not leveraging it. Like, to me, that is one of the saddest things, because again, when your career satisfaction is suffering, your life satisfaction is suffering. And so when you stay in a job that's making you unhappy, you're unintentionally, maybe even intentionally, choosing to be unhappy in your life. And I just think that is so heartbreaking when we weren't created to always be unhappy in our lives. And so let me get into it. I think I got on a soapbox there a little bit. I didn't mean to get on that soapbox, but I did. So let me get into the 3 things. Obviously, this is not all of it. So I'm just focusing on these 3. This is not everything, but 3 specific things I want to bring to your attention. 3 things that you're missing out on when you are in an unfulfilling career. The first thing that you're missing out on when you're in an unfulfilling career is purpose and alignment. You're missing out on experiencing purpose and alignment in your career. When you are doing unaligned and unfulfilling work, by its very nature, you're not walking in your purpose. And let me give you context for this. When I say purpose, for me, purpose is the same for everybody. Our purpose is to glorify God. That's it. That's why we were created on earth, is to glorify God. Now, our career gives us different ways to live out our purpose, right? So whether you're a teacher, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a program manager, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a director, whether you're in sales, marketing, whatever it may be, to me, your career is one avenue through which you can live out your purpose of glorifying God. Well, here's the thing. When you're doing unaligned work, argue with me, but you're not glorifying God. I don't think you are. Because to me, when you're doing unaligned work, that means you're doing work that is not aligned with the gifts, with the skills, with the talents that you have been given. And if you are working out of alignment of your gifts, your skills, your talents, then how are you going to glorify God? I don't think you can. And not to mention the fact that doing unaligned work is a sign that you don't have clarity. You're not clear about who you are, and you're not clear about what you want in your career. And that's why you've stayed in a job that is unaligned. And if you're not clear about who you are, you can't show up authentically in your job. And if you can't show up authentically in your job, you're not living on purpose. And so lack of clarity that keeps you stuck in unaligned jobs makes it harder for you to be in alignment, with yourself. I think the way I think of it is, how can you be in alignment with yourself if you don't even know who you are? And that was one of the things that sort of started me on this journey. I remember this was way back in, thinking of the year 2009, I want to say, I think is back when I was doing healthcare research, absolutely unaligned. And as I look back now, it's interesting because it wasn't unaligned because it was research, because right now as a faculty member, I do research all the time. Literally a third of my job is to do research. It was unaligned because of the type of research, the type of work environment, and the fact that I didn't know who I was in that phase of my life. So I didn't even know how to leverage the research to live on purpose. And so back in that season of my life, I didn't know who I was, which is why I was doing work that was making me unaligned, or I should say work that was making me unhappy, rather. Unaligned work that was making me unhappy. And when I decided that I didn't want to be unhappy anymore, because for me, it was very much a thought of the way my brain worked through it was, okay, I'm unhappy and miserable, and I'm unhappy and I'm miserable every day in my job. But I also know God didn't create me to be unhappy and miserable. So if God didn't create me to be unhappy and miserable, something's got to give, right? That was the thought process I went to that made me just say, okay, you know what? I need to change my career situation. And so when I went through that thought process, what I now came on the other end of was, okay, for me to find work I enjoy, that work has to be aligned with who I am. And so I need to figure out who I am to find work I enjoy. That journey that I went through was pretty much the foundation for FYFC. Foundation, not all of it, because ever since then, I do research in career development now. I teach career development. I train career counselors. So there's research and evidence base behind my work now. But the system, the framework that I use to help my clients in my program find a fulfilling career, which is based off of, it's a you first model. You need to figure out who you are first before you can find your fulfilling career. That came out of that journey that I went through, where I realized that I needed to know who I was to find fulfilling work. And so when I went through that journey, I figured out who I was. I recognized what God had put in me and what I needed to leverage to thrive in my career. And it was like, okay, when I know who I am authentically, I know the kind of work environments that I need to be in that will allow me to continue to be my authentic self. I know the kind of work that I need to do that will allow me to leverage my authentic self. And when I'm doing both of those things, it is so much easier for me to live on purpose. Again, that purpose, glorifying God. If I think of me right now, for example, I have two careers really, right? My business in Her Career Doctor and my work as a counselor or educator, as a faculty member. In HCD, one of the ways that I glorify God is with the women I work with. I always talk about my faith. And for me, the part of that is I want those women to see how God created them. Like one of my deepest desires in the work that I do is to help women recognize that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that God actually wants them to be satisfied in work. I can't remember the exact Bible verse right now, but I talked about it on a podcast episode recently. It's Ecclesiastes 3 something, where it says to be satisfied in your work is a gift from God. And I just strongly believe that because work was part of God's design for us, we were not meant or created to be unhappy in work all the time. Will it be hard? Yes. But fulfilling career doesn't mean that it's always easy. Like we're built to do hard things. Hard things help us grow and develop and evolve. But miserable? No, absolutely not. And so in my work, I want women to first recognize that work is a gift from God. Satisfaction in work is a gift from God. But also, I want these women to remember, and maybe one day you'll be one of these women if you're listening. If you're an old client, hopefully I did this for you if you're listening. But it's like, I want you to see that you have skills, you have talents, you have gifts so that you can be confident in yourself. You can see that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's one of the ways that I live out my purpose. When I think of my role as a faculty member, when I'm doing my research, when I'm teaching, I'm always talking about and focused on justice work, social justice work. Because for me, justice is part of glorifying God. If I think of Jesus, he was always advocating for the disenfranchised. Right? And so those are just some examples of how, because I have clarity about who I am, I'm able to do fulfilling work. And because I'm doing fulfilling work, I'm able to experience purpose and alignment in my life. When you're doing unfulfilling work, you don't get to experience that. You miss out on living on purpose and living in alignment. The second thing that you're missing out on when you are in an unfulfilling career is improved mental health and work-life balance. Improved mental health, I almost want to say it's self-explanatory, but it might not be. So let me break this down to you. When you're doing unaligned work, by its very nature, because it's not aligned with who you are, you're constantly operating outside of your zone of genius. And when you constantly operate outside of your zone of genius, it leads to you doubting yourself all the time, doubting your skills, doubting your ability, doubting your value. And over time, the more you doubt yourself, so there's like a graph of as self-doubt goes up, self-confidence goes down. Until you get to the point where you absolutely don't believe in yourself and the value you have to add to an organization anymore. When you are doing unaligned work, research consistently has shown that when you're doing unaligned work, you experience higher levels of work stress. When your work stress is high, you experience increased anxiety, increased depression, reduced creativity, reduced motivation, reduced excitement. You experience more self-doubt, low self-confidence, increased negative self-talk. Like all these things are wreaking havoc on your mental health. And when your mental health is imbalanced and out of whack because of the environment you work in, it impacts every other area of your life. It makes it harder for you to make decisions in other areas of your life, to show up in excellence in other areas of your life, which is why that second one, work-life balance, comes into play. When you're doing unaligned work that is consistently draining you, it's like when you're doing unaligned work, right? It's like every day of your job, you're pushing this big boulder up a hill. That's what it's like. You have expended all your energy just trying to survive at work that you have no more energy for life. That's why your work-life balance is out of whack. You don't have any energy left for the life stuff, for brunch on the weekends, to play with your kids, to go experience the world with your friends, to be present with your partner. Or like you don't have the energy to do life, which is why it feels like all you do is work. And so your work-life balance is out of whack. It's because your work is unaligned. All your energy is going into just trying to survive, just trying to make it. And so you have none left for life. And so when you're doing unaligned work, when you are in an unfulfilling career, you miss out on better mental health and improved work-life balance. And then the third and final thing that you're missing out on when you're in an unfulfilling career is financial increase. You are absolutely hurting your earning potential when you stay stuck in that job that's making you miserable. The first foundational reason is because the quickest way to increase your salary is to change companies. Like that's just, I will die on this hill. Anybody can argue this with me. Because think about it, most companies, I've seen this consistently. And if your company is different, please slide in my DMs on Instagram. Let's talk about it. Like I genuinely want to know where you work if it's different. But most companies are giving you 3 to 5% bonuses annually. And that's the good ones. And then maybe when you get a promotion, you get a 10% increase max. That's usually what you're seeing in an organization. When you go to a different company, there is no cap to how you can increase your salary. And I'm saying there's no cap because I have a client who increased her salary by 256%. That's the highest my client has done to date. She went from a 60K salary to a 260 or 200K salary. There's no cap when you change companies because what you command when you change companies is usually dependent on the role, the geographic location, the market value for the role, and the way you market yourself. In most states, it's illegal for them to ask you what you make. Some companies will still do it, don't tell them, but they can't base their new salary based off of what you were making before. And so staying in that job, first of all, that unfulfilling job is just hurting your earning potential because you're staying stuck in a job that's giving you maybe 3 to 5% salary increase every year. And then not to mention that if you're doing unaligned and unfulfilling work, there's a high chance that there's also been a cap put on your development. Just your professional and your skill development. And when you are not developing professionally, you can't command a higher salary, right? If you don't know that over the past 5 years, your skills have improved in some sense and that it will continue to do that, it makes it harder for you to walk into a negotiation and command a higher salary, impacting your ability to experience financial increase. And when I say financial increase, I think of all the clients I've worked with who have increased their salaries when they changed jobs. That wasn't just a one-time increase, right? Like I think of my client, Sarah, who we worked together 2, maybe 3 years ago, and she increased her salary by $55,000. Over 4 years, that's a $220,000 increase, something like that. That's the price of a house, right? Like you increase your salary now, you're experiencing that increase over years, not to mention the bonuses. If you change jobs, now you're coming from a different baseline, right? Where if you had 60K and you got into a job where you're making 100K, now the next time you go into another job, you're coming from that 100K mindset, but even higher because you've developed. So as you increase your salary, every time you change jobs, you're demanding more money, but not to mention that increase wasn't a one-time increase. You're experiencing it over the rest of your career, which is now more money that you can put in investments, put in savings so that you can start building wealth, right? Sometimes people think that they can't build wealth from a 9 to 5, but you can absolutely build wealth from a 9 to 5 if you have the right systems in place. But that all starts with earning more and then taking that money, putting it in an investment vehicle that will allow that money to grow for you separate from the work that you're doing in your career. And so when you are in an unfulfilling career, you miss out on experiencing financial increase. So those are 3 things you're missing out on when you're in an unfulfilling career: purpose and alignment, improved mental health and work-life balance, and financial increase. If you're listening to this and you're recognizing that you have in fact been missing out on those things and you don't want yet another year to go by with you still missing out on purpose and alignment, still missing out on your work-life balance, still missing out on financial increase, then I want to invite you to join us, at least check out, even if you don't enjoy, just check out my program, Find Your Fulfilling Career. FYFC was built to help you step into a fulfilling career, to secure an aligned job with a 5-figure salary increase so that you can live on purpose and thrive in your zone of genius. If you go to findyourfulfillingcareer.com, you can learn more about the program, and that's where you'll find all the information about who it's for, what you get, the kind of result. Like there's over 30 client stories on that page where you can see what other women have experienced when they joined Find Your Fulfilling Career. And enrollment is opening for the current cohort of FYFC. That link will also be in the description below. So thank you for listening to today's episode. And if you found this episode helpful, as usual, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you get notified whenever another video goes live. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode.